Welcome back to part two. Part two is going to be constructing the Power Automate flow for this process. It is probably the most important, but it's probably the simplest portion of this whole thing. So let's get started. Alright, I'm in my SharePoint site, and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the app launcher and open up Power Automate. Okay. If Power Automate doesn't show up in the app launcher, hit all apps, and then more apps, and then you'll see it, as long as you have the proper license. Alright, so we're in Power Apps now. We're going to go to Create, and then Instant Cloud Flow. You're going to give it a name. I just do function dash what it's for. And then we're triggering this from Power Apps, so we're going to use Power Apps v2. You'll notice that Power Apps v1 or the original one isn't there no more. They depreciated to the point where it's not even showing anymore. Okay, create. Alright, so at the top you'll see Power Apps v2. You're going to open it up. We're going to put two inputs in here. We're going to grab two inputs from Power Apps. Now the nice thing about this v2 is you don't have to create variables for the things it pulls in anymore. It creates them right here. So we're going to create a text variable called site URL. And you're going to leave the input blank because it's pulling it from Power Apps. We're going to do another one called library. I hope I can spell. Alright, then we're going to go to the next step. The next step is going to be get files. So we're going to get files. We're going to use the SharePoint. Okay, now you cannot use variables in this step. You have to manually change this every time you change libraries. So we're going to put in we're going to select our site first, which is our dev site, and our library is going to be documents. Okay. Now you can filter down so you don't grab everything in the library, but we're not going to do that. You just use the filter query here. It's an OData filter, so you put the internal name, space, and then the operator, EQ, NL, LT, so on and so forth, the different ones, greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, so on and so forth, okay? So that's all you need for that step. Next one is, now we're going to do our looping action, which is apply to each. So we'll just type in apply, and you'll see apply to each control. Because this pulls in a table, we got to loop through each one individually. And each step's going to be done, and then you're going to use the output of this step into here. So you're going to use value. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a condition, because what we're going to do is we're going to check for a checked out file. Now, not every file is going to be checked out, so we want to keep the thing halfway decent performance, and so it doesn't take forever. So I'm going to put a condition in here, and if it's not checked out, I'm going to have a bypass this step and go on to the next one. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're looking for a checked out value. So we'll just type in the word check. Let's go to the bottom and you'll see the word checked out. Okay, as you can see here it says true when the file is checked out, false otherwise. So it's a Boolean expression. So it works perfect for this. Okay, I'll make sure okay, so it says checked out is equal to, which is correct. And then we're going to say true. Okay. Now if it's true, it'll come down the yes side. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an action called check in a file. Now this one you can use our variables from our first step. So we're going to go here, custom value, scroll to the bottom because it's the first step. Remember, as it top loads the previous steps closer to you, and then the first step should be the bottom. We're looking for site URL. The library name is going to be library. Now the ID is going to get pulled from that table, from the get files step, so we're going to grab this ID. Now as you see, all these columns are required. Now when you check in a file on SharePoint, it doesn't require a comment, but in Power 8 Automate it does. So what I do is I just put auto check in. That lets it know that it's being auto checked in by Power Apps. Okay, and then check-in type. All of these will leave it checked out except for this one. Okay. It'll check in it'll create a draft, but it still won't be it won't be all the way you want to publish. Okay. And there's your checked in file. So I'm going to rename this step so I know what it's for without opening it. Check if file is checked out. Okay. And then we can close it up. The next action we're going to do is going to be, we're going to force the column. You probably remember from the first video where I said that the data column, the data values from the category column has to go in everything, right? Well, this is going to force it, okay? That's why I had you turn on the shared columns first. So when you do this step, it's going to add a data to one of the columns, which will put it in a modified state, which means it'll reach back up to the folder level or the library level, depending if it's a folder or a file, and grab that metadata if some exists and copy it down to that item that's in. Okay, so that's what we're doing next. So we're going to go here and we're going to go update file, update file properties. We're just updating the data, right? Now this step right here, because it deals with the columns, has to be hard-coded as well. These are the only two steps you have to do this with. So we're going to select our site, which is our dev site. We're going to select our library name, which is documents. And we're going to select our ID, called ID. Now because I put this library name in here, it gave me these columns. Okay. Now every list, every library has a title column. No matter what you do, it's always going to be there. It's made with the list or the library. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to put the name of the file or the name of the folder in that title field, so that way it forces it to be modified, so we'll pull that stuff in. So we'll type in name here. We're going to grab the name column and put it in there. And boom, all it's done. Only thing that's required are these three. But I'm adding this to it. Okay. So I'm going to rename this to say force inheritance of column data. Like I said, I can't spell it big. Okay, and then I'm going to close that up. And then the next one is going to be, I'm going to force the permissions of that item to its parent. Okay, so if it's a file, it's going to go to the folder. If it's a folder, it's going to go to the library, or if it doesn't have document sets, it's going to go file straight to the library. Okay, we want to reset those permissions in case they're wrong. So you're going to do an HTTP call, or 2 T's, to SharePoint. Here we're going to use our variable we had from the first step. As you see, as I make steps, it's going to make this list a little longer. Say URL. And then in here, I'm going to grab this information from my other flow and pop it in here. Now, this and this is not what I'm going to do here. It's from a different flow, so it's not going to be pertain here. I'm going to add a note on here so you know what the call is and how to use it. So in between these two apostrophes and behind the give by title property, I'm just going to put library name, and then the items in that bracket is going to be ID. So that way everybody knows what it is. Okay? Now in here, we're going to use our dynamic content. And our first step, once again, I'm going to grab library. And then after the items, between those two brackets, come back up here and grab the ID information from the get files. And if you read this, it's an API call to the web, and it's doing a search by gets by title. So when this title equals this, now it's important that you put these apostrophes on each side of it. Okay, it's letting you know it's a string value. Okay, and then it goes slash items. So it's looking at the item level, and it's saying it's looking for a particular ID. And then it's going to reset role inheritance. So basically it's going to delete those unique permissions and force inheritance. There's no headers or body, so you don't have to worry about that. This is all you need right here. We'll rename this step to force permissions to re-inherit. Okay? You can call it whatever you want, that's just what I'm calling it. So you know what each step does. And the last step is another condition statement, because now we're going to look at that column data, which is the category. I don't know if I can spell today. Whoops, it's not a condition. I apologize. This is the switch statement. Okay, we're looking for an exact value, right? So switch is what we need. We could do a condition, but it would be really complicated. Switch just makes it easier. Now, if we had to do something other than equals to, then we'd use condition. Oh my God, stop. I didn't mean to hit that. I meant to hit switch. Switch. There we go. Now, the condition we're going to use is called category. There is a category here, but that's not the right one. The data inside your columns may look like string text or just text. It's not. It's just a value. Okay? We need the category value option. Okay? Because this is the whole drop down. We just want what's in there. So we're going to come down here and we're looking for category value. Okay? So we're switching on category value. Now, I have 4 options, right? A, B, C, and D. So we're going to add 4 conditions here, or 4 cases here. So we have what we need. So, first one's going to be A. Now this is case sensitive, by the way. So make sure you exactly match what you have in your drop downs. It has to match. Okay, and then I go through here and I rename these so I can see what each one is without opening it up. And you see it only takes a minute. It doesn't extend your time tremendously. Now, if you have like 20 of them, now keep in mind, if you have more than 20, I think 25 options in your drop down, you're going to have to get creative with this. That's when you're going to use a condition statement with switch. You're going to have to say, hey, if the condition, if the category equals this, 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 you know, you can grab the first 20, put them in there, and then you put your switch statement on the yes side, and on the no side, you make another condition, which you go da, 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 and I'll show you an example of that here later. I have one that I had to do that with. So, but we're going to, like I said, we're trying to keep this simple so it's not confusing. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to come in here, add an action. You're going to type in grant, access to folder. In here, you can use your variables. Okay, so we're going to go here. And then we're going to go all the way down to the bottom again. Select URL. Go here. Select the custom value, and we're going to select library. Here, we're going to select ID from GIF files. We're going to leave recipients blank for right now. What we're going to do is we're going to copy the step 3 times to fill in the other boxes. But I only want to put in stuff that's going to be the same for those, so we don't have to delete stuff out of it. So the next thing we're going to put in here is our role. Okay. There's only 2 roles in here: can edit, can view, which is contribute and read. If you want to do, now if you made a custom permission level, you'll have to pull the ID, and if you want to do that, I'll probably do a separate video on that, but we're not going to do that here. I'm creating an archive. This is an archive library that's never going to change again. We just want to lock down the permissions for PII. That's the scenario we're using, so I'm going to make everything can view. And then on the notify recipients, I'm not going to notify them. Now, if you do notify them, you can put a short message in here. That's text if you want to. All right, so now I'm going to copy to my clipboard. Now you'll notice when you try to add it here from my clipboard, it's going to give you an error. You cannot add something you cannot add something you copied to your clipboard in the exact same action. Okay. As you can see up here, it says cannot find da 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 da. Right. So close this out. But if we go here to add action down here, because we're outside our switch command now, it'll work. Okay. It collapses the switch automatically, and because it thinks you're going to do another action. All right. So boom, there it is. Well, it collapsed this too. So there it is. We're going to add 2 more. Our switch command back open. We're going to uncollapse B, C, and D. And then we're going to drag one of these in each box. So when you open this up, you'll notice they're exactly the same. And now all that's left is putting our recipient permission group in there, right? All right. Remember those 4 M365 groups I showed you in video 1? Or the first part? We're going to use them now. So you just start typing the name of you just type doc, because all of them's got to start with documents, right? So A signified leadership, remember? So we're going to do leadership here. And from here, we're going to type doc again. And then B signified HR. So HR there. And then if it's C signifies logistics, and then D signifies operations. Okay. The test script we're not using. Why did it select them both? That's weird. Okay, so we got leadership, HR, logistics, and operations. And that finishes our flow. Okay, so let's run through this real quick. We're going to open all these up. Right, so when we initiate from our Power App that doesn't exist yet, we're going to pull in 2 variables, right? Which is going to be set in the Power App, and they're going to get assigned to these 2 names, this dynamic content we have up here. Okay, and it's going to kind of tuck it away for a rainy day. Get files is going to pull in a table of data from your library. So every item that's in your library is going to get pulled into a table inside Power Automate. Remember, this is just properties. This is not the actual file data. It's just the properties from the data. And then it's going to do a loop until it hits the end of this table. It's going to start with the first one and go all the way to the billionth one, whichever one it is. Okay. First thing it's going to do is going to check see if the file's checked out. It's going to look at the property checked out, is equal to true. If it's equal to true, it's going to check in our file with this information, right? If it's not checked out, it's going to hit no. Since there's no action there, it's going to continue on down the tree. Next thing it's going to do is going to force inheritance of column data. I don't care if it's pulling that data in or not. We could put a condition there if we wanted to, but I don't want to slow it down, so I'm just going to do it. So it didn't open up right. So it's going to go to this site, to this library, with this ID from that table, and say, hey, whatever the name is, put it in the title column, which will trigger the modified state, which means it'll reach up and grab and see if that column data has changed. If it has, it'll change it. If not, it'll just leave it like it is. Next step, force permissions to re-inherit. Okay, so it's going to go to the site URL. It's going to do a get. Why are these not opening? Oh, this is so weird. And then it's going to run this API call. Okay. And this is actually the only thing it's going to do right here. It's going to force the role inheritance to reset to its original state, which is inheriting from the parent, which in this library will be the library set, the library itself. Okay, it'll pull the permissions down, so the owner, if it has any permissions in there, it's going to reset it to what's on the library, which is just the owners. Okay, and then it's going to come down here and it's going to check the category value. Actually, I don't think that's right. I thought it's supposed to have a space in there. Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay, so category value, if it equals A, B, C, or D, it'll run that particular action under that box. Alright, so let's go ahead and save this. Definitely don't forget to save it, especially the first time, because if you navigate away from it, you just lost your whole flow. It doesn't save until you tell it to. Okay? So now you can come back here, and when you get ready to run the flow, this is where the history is. According to this, it hasn't been run yet. Now, if you pull from a template or you do a save as to make a second copy of this, it's going to turn it off by default. Okay? Now, if you build it from scratch like we did, when you hit that first save, it automatically turns it on for you. As you can see, it says right here, your flow is ready to go. It's turned on and will run when triggered. Okay? So just be aware that's what happens. Okay? And that's our flow. Okay? In the next video, maybe next 2 videos, depends how long it takes. I'm not trying to make these more than 30 minutes each. We're going to talk about building your Power App. Okay? There's a lot that kind of goes into it, but it's a simple Power App to operate. But you set it up and get it to work the way it's supposed to. We got a lot of formulas we have to put in. So that's probably the hardest part of this whole process. And I hope I see you there. I hope you have a good day.